Okay, so what did I do last year? Well, I did all sorts of things. I made interactive videos for my courses. I used peer feedback, a peer review. I won't go into that in depth because Arend will talk about that as well. I made loads of short feedback videos, which I really liked. I also tried to dive into the literature because there's been a lot of research on how to use video and other digital things in education. I tried all sorts of different tools, and also I always try to find the safer public open source options like a big blue button instead of Zoom or Teams. And even lately I tried to build my own prototype of an online lecture hall, which I might show you, but of course I don't have time to show you all these things. But I'll see how much time I spend on each and how far I get. So first of all, peer review. I think about this I can be short. I teach a lot of project courses. I teach in design courses. So students produce a lot of work and reports, and it takes a lot of time to review those. So previously what we often did is to have presentations during the course where students present their work and they respond to each other and we give some feedback. But of course, last year that was impossible, so I switched all that to peer review. And actually, that was one of the things that made me go, I should keep doing it this way. Because students do this very seriously. And also, we asked them, so was it useful to get feedback? But also, how did you feel about giving feedback? Because all the research into this also finds that looking critically at other people's work is actually what students learn from, and I was glad to see that that's also the experience of students, that they really like seeing other people's work and going through it critically, step by step, by the questions that we put into the peer review system. But I won't go into details. I use peer.tu Delft.nl these days, which Arend uses as well, and he'll talk about I understand. So I'm a big fan of peer review, especially for project courses. And if there's lots of students in your project course. Okay, where did all my things go? I made a big mistake with my PowerPoint setup. I have to bring them back every time. Okay, what I want to talk about for a bit longer is the feedback videos. Because I did want to, of course, also give feedback myself to my students. And because I was already producing videos and I had it set up, I experimented with doing that with short screencast videos as well. And this is also something I'm very enthusiastic about. So what I do is something that looks roughly like this. I just have a screen share with a camera in the corner. And what I like about it is, first of all, you can put a little bit of feeling into it. So you can see me in the corner here looking, well, reasonably normal for me giving feedback, but you can really sort of look surprised or express that you don't understand something, or for instance, this was for a very enthusiastic group, and they were doing really good work, but they did just one thing really badly. So if you write that down, it's very difficult to convey that you're proud of them, but this is bad. But in a video, it's very quick to be very enthusiastic and then in one page go, dude, people don't, this is just disappointing. Okay, next. And students appear to like this as well. And the second thing I like about it is that it's a time saver. So for me, when I look at reports and I have to write feedback or put it in the PDF with remarks and comments, that can take quite some time, and it took some investment to set up the way I wanted to record these videos and to get practiced at it. But I think at report number 20 or so, I actually started spending less time per report than I would have when I was doing it in written form, because I have a button on my keyboard set to pause the recording, so I can say something, pause the recording, scroll through to the next page, see something I want to say something about, start the recording again, say that thing, pause it again so I can make the video and read the report at the same time. So for me, it's actually quicker than reading the reports and doing it in writing. Plus the result is more fun and more personal, and you can put more nuance into it. And because I had this set up, it was also easy for me to make short ad hoc videos about the contents of a course. So this is an example of like concept selection tables where students were making lots of mistakes in one of the courses where I teach. So halfway through the course, I sat down and in half an hour made a video of 5 minutes or something, where I went through what they were doing wrong and how I wanted them to do it. So this also gives me the tool when I see halfway through the course that something isn't working, to make a quick ad hoc mini lecture video to explain a concept. By the way, your face shouldn't be this big. I've since realized and found out it's better to do something like this, and also to make sure that you design your screen so that when you're looking at your screen, that your face on the video is actually looking in the correct direction, because people follow gaze direction, the research shows. So when I'm looking there, while I'm trying to explain something that is actually there, that is bad. That's bad, that's ineffective. So something like this, where you actually look at the thing you're talking about, and then sometimes you can look at the camera so people look at your eyes and not at the thing you're pointing to, works better. Okay, how do I do that? Because the question is always, how do you do that? What are the what tool do you use? I used to use Captura, the thing on the left, which is a very simple open source and free program where you can make these sorts of screencasts. I started with that. I was very happy with it, so I recommend it for those who want something simple. I now use OBS Studio, which is streaming software, but you can use it very well to record videos as well, or to do this. I use this and do this in OBS as well. So if you plan on using video in your courses in the future, I highly recommend investing some time in getting to know OBS as you would learn PowerPoint or Microsoft Word as a teacher, because it really is quite simple in the end and very effective tool to do stuff like this, but also to make quick videos that look like you want them to look. And you can set keyboard shortcuts for pausing the video and so on and so forth. So I highly recommend it. And that's one of the things I'm taking with me. Okay, that was my video talk. Now I have to bring back all my things. Yeah, and I wanted to also go through a bit of the research that I found looking around, because making all these videos I had questions like, how big should my face be? And I thought, well, people must have done the research, and it turns out they did. So if you read one paper about video in education, read this one. This is Brahma 2016. It's sort of a summary literature review of all the things that work and don't work in video. It also includes some theory about why these things work and don't work. It's quite short. It's very practical. I got a lot of useful tips from this at the beginning, so I highly recommend this as the only paper you read if you only read one. But like I said, I also looked at things that I wanted to do anyway. For instance, making drawn diagrams. What I also do, again, I use OBS to switch cameras, so I can now switch to my overhead camera here. I use a lot of these sort of drawn diagrams in my courses, mainly because it's fun and I want to sort of express the fact that people should sketch and work on paper. So I wanted to give the right example. But then my question was, is that a good idea? Does it work? So I tried to look it up, and it turns out it actually works. Drawing a diagram is actually better than presenting one fully finished when you're explaining something, But what really works well is drawing it or having a video where only your hand is visible and not the instructor as a whole. So again, it's an argument for using something like OBS, so you can go back and forth between a video where you have your face and a video where you have just your drawing. But that works really well. And they also tested that, so that the hand-drawn version versus the digital tablet version. And it turns out drawing it on a digital tablet doesn't work, because you really need to see the physical hand for human brains to activate their, okay, now I'm looking where the teacher wants me to look system. That happens naturally in one of these top-down videos where you see your hands, and it doesn't work very effectively in the digital versions of those where you use a tablet where you just see the lines appearing. So that was an interesting result I found in the literature, and that gives very practical conclusions that I try to use. Also about the size of your face, should it be big or small? It should be small. This research, they tested this in a very structured way, as you can see, and it turns out, of course, when your face is on the screen, it's also a bit of a distraction. So that's a downside, but it's good to be on the screen at least some of the time, because it gives the students a feeling of connection with you and it helps them stay engaged. So that's the bonus side of it. But for that bonus side you already achieve with a very small image, and the negative side becomes bigger and bigger the bigger your image is. So if you're on screen, you should be relatively small, or when you're big, you should just be talking and know that when you're on the screen and you're large, like I am now, you should assume that people are looking at your face and not at the thing next to you, unless you're actually looking at it. So I'm changing this setup. I'm no longer happy with it. I think I'm too big. I'll post this in the chat after I'm done. So please don't copy this, which includes some more tips, I think. And Puck just also posted the link to the paper I mentioned as the one you should look at if you only look at one and want some practical tips. So, and then to the big, to the last thing I think I want to show or to discuss briefly. I'm thinking now ahead of September when we get the new students. I teach in a very big first year course in the mechanical engineering bachelor, so that's with 700 students, and usually that is in the aula, in the auditorium. And I was thinking, if we're allowed to go physically again, would I actually do that, or would I do it similar to how I did it last September, which was a YouTube live stream? And my experience there was I could have more and higher quality interaction with the group online than I could in the auditorium with 700 students for a lot of lectures, not all of them, but for a lot of them. But I also noticed that the fact that there's a chat, which there is also today, is very distracting, especially if you have a big group, even if they're doing the things you're asking them to do, so answering your questions or asking questions of themselves that are relevant to the lecture. Because there's messages popping up next to the screen, any student watching will be distracted by all those things popping up. So that's a big disadvantage of online education, which is why I built this. Which is this is a screenshot of a website I sort of built myself. The rectangle you see is just an embedded live stream, a Twitch live stream in this case, but that's for technical reasons. But what I made is a website that is just a video, but then underneath the video there's already the buttons for multiple choice questions and a chat box, but that chat message goes only to me. So when a student writes something there, I see it like you would in a normal chat, but they don't see each other's chat messages unless I put them in the video. But by default they don't see each other's messages, which prevents a lot of distraction. And also by having this interface very clean and not having to send them a link for the polls, I can just go press the buttons below me. I hope that the goal is to prevent them getting distracted from what you want to say. And also, because I'm using a live stream, what I can do is like switch the screen completely to, for instance, my drawing a diagram. Or when I just want to make them enthusiastic and say something, I can switch the screen to just me and not have my screen share take up most of this, the screen. So all those things are means to minimize distraction. Now this is sort of, I can program a little bit, but not really. So I know enough to be dangerous. So this is good for my use, but it's not ready for other people, sadly. But I showed this to a colleague of mine, and he said, well, oh yeah, that you can actually do this in Zoom. You can put the chat, you can set it to only to the host, so that students can't chat to each other, but they can send you questions or answers to your questions. And also in Teams, you can, I think, switch the chat on and off at least, so you can do a bit of lecture and then have, like in a real lecture, you'd have space for questions. So if I have to teach a large class in a platform that I have no control over, I will start trying those sorts of things. But yeah, this is one of the things why I think doing things physically can be much better, because you have much more control over minimizing distractions and minimizing multitasking because students have to also control the software or do other things or go to a link for a poll. All those things are, well, opportunities for students to get distracted, and it's already difficult to keep them engaged online, and it's even more difficult to keep them engaged on the content instead of engaged by fun things that actually distract from the teaching. And all that is much, much easier in a physical setting where all our instincts and inbuilt subconscious systems actually help, instead of that they're in the way, which they're often when you're at a distance. So yeah, that's what I have been doing and working on the last year. So what I want to keep is the short feedback videos. I just did a few this morning, and again I was surprised by how quick I got through the work. And I think I want to keep doing the really big lectures with hundreds of students online, but only if I can design it in a way that it's not super distracting for them. Otherwise, I would also be skeptical that that's a good idea. So yeah, if there's any questions or other things people would like to know, of course I'm open. Perhaps we will move on to the other presenters first, and then I'll ask questions later. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Bob. That was great.